And if you're working with an agency that is not doing that, fire them. So, because it's true that the technology these days enables you to at least get strong, if not perfect signal. Brand marketing, for the purpose of just brand mass exposure, is essentially dead because of all of the measurement abilities that we have now. My big thing for marketers today is measure everything and try to tie it to an actual business KPI that is meaningful.
Welcome to the Backcountry Marketing Podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Ryan Watson. He is the CMO, COO at MTNTOUGH Labs. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Dude, glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Alex connected us. Alex was on the show, like a month ago, and had an awesome episode all about product marketing and value proposition, and had some harsh words for the outdoor industry. And so I don't want to say he set the bar high, but you've come highly recommended.
Good deal. Yeah, I love Alex. We had a good run over at Onyx Maps together. He's a good dude.
Yeah, he knows his stuff for sure. We're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about, kind of your opening statement when we connected on our intro call was this idea that brand marketing for the sake of impressions is like, if you're chasing that today, you should probably reconsider what you're putting your effort and energy and money into. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about community building as kind of a subset of brand marketing and the power of community. And we're also going to talk about performance marketing and brand marketing and some nuance between those two and how they can work together. So Ryan, kind of give us a little background on yourself, MTNTOUGH, and can you kind of give us an opening statement on why you think brand marketing for the sake of impressions is dead?
Yeah. So, you already said it. CMO of and COO of MTNTOUGH Fitness Labs. We are a fitness app that is specifically geared towards the backcountry hunter, military, law enforcement, first responders. It's a highly functional, fitness style that's very unique. That was born out of the mountains of Bozeman, Montana, by our founder, and that's been an incredible ride. That thing is, we're growing it like crazy right now, and it's been really fun. It's a fairly unique brand to work on, very niche, and very difficult to sell because it's very difficult fitness, and it's not based around vanity, which a lot of fitness is based on, looking better, where this one is, mission specific training. Your body will change, you will look better if you do MTNTOUGH for sure. But it's not like the actual focus, which makes it actually like quite difficult to sell sometimes if you're not, playing into those, the psychological reasoning for people to want to go lift weights. So before then, I was at Onyx Maps as the growth director for the company. I started there as an early digital marketing specialist and just worked my way up into leading teams and had some incredible teammates. All the credit goes to the team. They were, just a stacked group of highly motivated, very intelligent people. And we did some amazing things at Onyx. So I have a lot of incredible experience to draw from there. Very lucky to work with the people I did at that company. And then before then, I just went to college here in the University of Montana, grew up in Missoula, local town, local kids, still here. So that's my background. I guess so. The statement, I guess, was that, kind of trying to toy with like a hot take here is that brand marketing, for the purpose of just brand mass exposure or just buying impressions, is essentially dead because of all of the measurement abilities that we have now. A prime example is people used to buy TV ads, and then the measurability, which I would have called probably like directional at best, was surveys that were sent out by Nielsen, and looking for lift or foot traffic increases, but you really didn't know the actual effect. It was a lot of smoke and mirrors, just due to technological limitations. So my my big thing for marketers today is measure everything and try to tie it to an actual business KPI that is meaningful. And if you're working with an agency that is not doing that, fire them. So, because it's true that the technology these days enables you to at least get strong, if not perfect, signal.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Way to set the stage here for a good conversation. So walk us back, kind of explain like brand marketing for the sake of impressions.
Mhm.
What does that look like? Provide a little context. What do you mean by that? What does that actually look like historically in the outdoor industry? And then let's go from there.
I think that, hopefully when I'm not dogging on brand marketers, because I think it's just a mentality shift, right? And also an acceptance of technology. So a lot of times you would get a lot of pushback, for example, on, creative a creative team might deliver something and it's just the thing that you're given, and then you execute that campaign with that asset. It's one big marketing campaign around one thing, one message, where now you're able to test many messages all throughout, optimize your ad campaigns throughout a creative optimize your ad campaigns, your creative, your messaging throughout the life of a campaign. It could change drastically based on performance. So sort of the days of just creating this big giant brand around one key message, one tagline, one commercial, I guess you could call it. I think that's kind of over. At least it's over for very intentional marketing. I definitely think that, big giant brands like Coca-Cola, could probably still get away with this with just the amount of money that they're spending and the lack of the need for direct, conversions. But I think in the outdoor industry, you really gotta be, it's hard. The outdoor industry is niche, it's finite, and you just cannot get away with poor shotgun style marketing. I think you have to be way more intentional, way more measured, and you still have to take risks, obviously, but you can approach spending marketing dollars very carefully these days, and you can pull the plug on things that aren't working very quickly and iterate very quickly nowadays. And I think that sort of mentality shift is more what I'm talking about versus like, just buying impressions is dead. Because I do think that you could just buy impressions in certain ways, and that because you want to increase foot traffic, so you're going to buy some billboards in a town. That's basically buying impressions, right? And as long as that's a part of some sort of measured lift or very intentional like placement, proximity to stores, I think that stuff can kind of work. It's more just that, like, don't take anything for granted. Don't spend money without trying to count every dollar that you spend towards the conversion.
Do you feel like though brands before recently was like because I guess how do you define brand marketing? Let's start there.
I think brand marketing would be, I mean, I think this is somewhat subjective because, a lot of times you would see businesses split performance marketing teams and then a brand marketing team, where the brand marketing team might be developing a storyline, a feature film, you know, doing things. Maybe I guess maybe brand marketing is doing things for the sake of doing them because maybe it's the right idea potentially. And performance marketing is doing things that you measure and keep doing if they work. It's like marketing your company broadly versus specifically. I guess is probably how I would define it.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so yeah. So like I've always interpreted brand marketing as like this is who we are, this is our
Uh-huh.
values, this is our story, and we're gonna share it. But what you're saying is that I know like that stuff is important. I know you know that that's important, but you're saying like don't do just that stuff without coupling it to specific problems or specific KPIs. I guess when was the industry just focusing on brand and impressions without trying to solve a specific problem or without having a specific KPI that they were trying to see results on? Like was there ever a time where that was happening?
Yes. and I would say it's when you could not measure it, right? So, sort of before the direct response age, and just like TV has slowly died over time. Now when I say TV, I'm talking about non-connected TV, because we should maybe talk about connected TV, because that's a completely different game now, because it might have better measurement than your phone for performance marketing nowadays, just because of the technology behind it and the lack of privacy settings on connected TVs. So it's kind of like that. It was like an old agency mentality shift where you'd spend, you know, a lot of money developing like the creative up front, and then just launching it everywhere, because the delivery mechanism was not able to be iterated quickly upon. But now you have Instagram and Facebook, where literally you can see on a day when one ad is doing better than the other and turn the bad one off. So it's because of these direct response technologies and Meta being incentivized for businesses to do well, to make more money. The attribution becomes way more important, because if they can grow their subset of businesses, then they're going to spend more money. It's a perfect cycle, right?
Yeah. Yeah, gotcha. So then when is brand marketing in its historical definition, is there ever a time and a place for it?
I don't I don't think so anymore. I think so the way that I would say brand marketing needs to shift now is kind of, to our point, is more like, especially for the outdoor industry, is community building, and sort of still linked to the value of the product. And still, it's almost like, kind of what Alex was saying, was almost like brand marketing and product marketing almost need to completely align, so that you're still delivering, a specific value proposition message as a part of your brand, because you're competing with so many things right now. Your phone, like, people are very glued to their phones, but you have, the everybody's scrolling, and if you're advertising there, which is where most people's eyeballs is the most intently now, you don't have a lot of time to tell a longer narrative story. It's almost like you have to hook them first with your product value proposition, get them into the product, and then foster loyalty after the fact. So so that's why I say, like, brand marketing is more like community building, but you got to hook them first. And hooking them first, I think, it's less efficient to be more narrative at the front now than being more value proposition based up at the front now, if that makes sense. So it's almost like reframing the brand marketing storytelling to down funnel.
Interesting. Got it. So we're basically flipping the funnel on its
Pretty
head.
much. Yeah. Yeah. You gotta
Interesting.
hook them first. And if you, and
And you
I think that people can be very inspired by stories, right? I think Yeti is probably a counter to this example. Um, but you got to realize how much money they had and how much money they were able to invest in that. If we're talking smaller shops, if you blow all your money on,
well, but they like you start if you talk to them and you learn about the strategy behind what they were
right,
doing, you also realize that they had a very specific strategy with that content in those
100%.
films.
Yeah,
They
100%.
weren't just producing them because they were cool. They
Right,
were trying to build relationships within communities that they weren't yet integrated with.
right. Yep. Oh, totally,
Which is an excellent like challenge and KPI to be
totally.
trying to solve for.
It's also very expensive. So what I'm saying is, like, it may not be like, I wouldn't advise many brands to spend as much money as like Yeti did on a film as their top of funnel strategy, because you're competing with Mr. Beast on YouTube. And good luck getting that feature film, out there, unless you've already built like that sort of like following and you have the money to invest in it. It just depends on the company. A lot of times all of these points are nuanced. Um, you know, and I do think that Yeti was a first mover on this advantage for sure. I think they definitely didn't have as much competition in the brand space doing that type of strategy either.
So come back to this idea of the hook.
Uh-huh.
I'm scrolling, and all of a sudden I come across something, and you're betting that the hook is should be tied more to the value proposition of the product or the service rather than the brand's narrative and like a sexy story.
Yeah, because I mean, the average watch time is like 3 seconds on Reels,
Sure.
on ads. And I think
And
this varies for everybody, but you can watch it, a good ad a good average ad is probably 5 seconds plus of view time if you're looking at all of the views that you're getting, because then a subset of those views are going to watch for longer than that 5 seconds, and a subset of those will click, and a subset of those clicks will purchase, right? And so the hook I think is more efficient when you're trying to solve the user's problem in a really cool, unique way. Now, that sort of creativity is really important. That brand marketing creativity is really important to bring to the front of that funnel, because it is basically the fastest elevator pitch now in the world, and that 3-second window and honestly, I've read Facebook's documentation. They're saying like you have to hook them in the first 2 seconds. And you
Hmm.
really pay attention to who's doing this really well are those accounts that are taking podcast clips and doctoring it with the way that the text captions what color they are. What's holding your attention? Are they yellow? Are they green? Are they red? They're probably testing all of these things. And then what is the person saying? When do you start that reel so that the user gets the context very quickly that makes them want to watch the rest of the reel? Um, I've done ads where it's literally like from a podcast conversation where you're like, oh, this is perfect. This is a quick to value conversation, and it's kind of and it's interesting, it's intriguing, right? Now, ads from podcasts, definitely one tactic for sure. But when you're building out your product marketing campaigns, aligning them with your performance marketing campaign, you have to have that sort of like quick, fast value. Why do I care? Why am I going to keep watching this thing? Because that algorithm knows what you like, and it probably is putting something in front of you that you're going to like, because Facebook's getting really good at that, right? They're getting really good at tuning people's algorithm. If you see an ad, you're most likely interested in that thing. Um,
I'm maybe not if you're on my Facebook. It's all trash.
yeah, I guess maybe it depends.
Yeah, so you're making me think about this concept. So I feel like the reason why the hook, if your hook in an ad is the value proposition of your product,
Hmm.
I can see why that makes sense. It's because people are selfish
Hmm.
and people are looking for something for themselves. And if you show up and you're like, "Hey, I can help you get in shape for a sheep hunt that's upcoming,"
Hmm.
like, "Oh, boom, I'm interested because I'm a sheep hunter and now I want to, I want to figure out how to carry around 100 pounds on my back and go on a hunt." You're solving a need for me.
Hmm.
To compare that to like a brand marketing narrative that maybe is being put out, almost inherently it's a story that's like, it opens on some like misty mountain shot and there's like
Oh.
guys hiking up a ridge line and you're telling a story about the company is telling you about who they are.
Hmm.
They're interjecting their story into your life,
Hmm.
and I think maybe that's why what you're seeing, that value proposition component, is a stronger hook than a brand narrative. So, a second thought to that though is like, what if you could craft a narrative that is like so freaking compelling that you tap into that selfish need
Hmm.
of the human? I think there's a way to do that and still have that brand narrative be that strong hook.
Yeah,
It just maybe it
they can
takes
be
more work.
together. Yeah, they can definitely work together, and it depends on the company for sure. So I guess for an example for Mountain Tough, it just depends on what you want to lead with, I think, because so much focus needs to be on getting them engaged, to watch that longer. Like I said, the creative aspect of getting people to stay engaged is there. Um, but you're not just banking on one thing nowadays. You could create 5 or 20 and test all of them. And then when the one that works the best, you could push forward, and you just use that narrative. So I think again, it's more of like a cultural shift to not just a one and done launch of something, and it's an iterative approach to things. Not being married to certain messaging or styles, and really truly testing them out, giving them enough breadth, enough money behind them to truly get good data.
Do you feel like it makes a difference what sort of product the company is selling? Like if we're to really simplify, you've got
Mhm.
like very niche, high ticket items versus like Coca-Cola, where they're selling to everyone
Mhm.
rather than a very specific audience. Do you think that makes a difference in whether you start with a brand narrative versus a value proposition of the product?
Yeah, I really do think it does. A lot of those historic brands have so much brand equity that they can just ride on it out into the future. Coca-Cola for sure is one of them. Like they're just so recognizable, and what they're trying to do is create the purchase in the store, right? Like or build, I guess they and I say that about Coca-Cola specifically, but they purchased vitamin water, and their placement for vitamin water was all over TV shows and, people drinking it, and but again, they're still resting on the laurels of a gigantic brand and money, to almost force function this sort of like brand awareness to performance. Like, but in the outdoor industry, a lot of these smaller brands just do not have that luxury.
Yeah.
And you have to just be so much more intentional. So but we'll see what happens. I think a lot of these big companies buy up these once a brand is starting to figure it out, unless they go public, they get purchased. And so that brand that maybe has that historical brand equity can keep their profits going, through acquisitions. Just like vitamin water is a good example of that.
Hmm. It's hard to argue that Coca-Cola has much of a value proposition to their customer.
I mean, besides just tasting good, and now like with all of this, health-based things, I would argue, yes, they definitely do not. Um, yeah.
How do you feel about, I'm not gonna name names, but, like, when a larger outdoor brand launches some big brand campaign, how do you feel about those? Do you feel like there's a time and a place? Do you feel like they're useful?
No. I don't. I think that they could make more sell through by really strong performance marketing and spend all of those dollars on performance marketing and do a lot better, especially if they have a strong direct to consumer channel. I know they need to support stores and build foot traffic, but I think you can do both. Um, a good example was Airbnb really made a big shift away from performance marketing, and Booking.com was like, "Oh, sweet, here's our opportunity." While Airbnb was focused on brand storytelling and PR was really big for them. Booking.com just crushed performance marketing. You can see it in their 10K. They are doing incredibly well. Where Airbnb was a lot less, did not have that kind of growth. Um and so I think it's oh, man, it maybe this is controversial, but a brand campaign when pitched to executives is like this big, beautiful like storyline, this deck, this like, oh my gosh, we're going to change lives with this message, or da 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 da. And it maybe is easier to pitch than like, okay, we're going to test these like five different concepts over this period of time. We're going to look for statistical analysis on the best messaging, and then we're going to push this ad out into specific channels and measure those channels and keep iterating as we go. I personally think that's way cooler, just as a data nerd. And but a lot of brand marketing agencies and internal creative teams just do not operate in that same way sometimes. And I think that just it's again, it comes back to a mentality shift, almost like a like brand marketing can be performance marketing. I think it really all should be performance marketing. You should be all iterative and testing and using the best creative that you can. For example, why do we think that Coinbase did that just floating little box? Do you guys think that was really just a bet? No, they tested that on other ads before then, so that was really effective.
Hmm.
And then they were like, let's use this at the Super Bowl. And so that was a great example of like just something that was tested and then done.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. My beef with the whole brand campaign thing is, and I guess it's my beef with like all of marketing, is it comes back to the we were talking about this on our intro call, permission marketing.
Yes.
Like, do you have permission as the brand to show up in this person's life? And I feel like most, whether it's performance or brand or whatever it is, most companies, if they're gonna interrupt my world and my
Right.
life, they're not doing it in a way that the cost of the interruption is outweighed by the value of whatever I'm seeing or watching or engaging with.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's my beef with big brand campaigns is because if you're gonna do them, uh, make it worthwhile for the audience. Like you got to give them something to outweigh the cost of the interruption and distraction.
You know what I've thought is actually like a pretty amazing thing to bring back into this world is comedy.
Oh yeah,
Is
yeah, for
is like
sure.
is like comedy is value to the user. It creates laughter, right? Where you're like, this misty mountain, this boot is the most powerful thing you've ever put on your foot. It will climb Everest. But it's almost like that's in that permissions-based marketing thing, that story is maybe cool, and maybe you can hook the user with that value proposition for sure, but that longer narrative is harder to hold the attention. But dude, comedy crushes at that, absolutely crushes at that. Mountain Tough did this ad called Deeper Into the Bush. And it was basically like an innuendos to we basically looked at an old Dodge commercial as a Super Bowl commercial. And I think that's where the comedy just absolutely wins with a lot of these things for memory, right? Memory recall. And we did this thing where there's two guys in a stall talking about Mountain Tough, and it was like, totally misunderstood by the guy in the stall next to them. And it it was like just all a bunch of innuendos. And dude, that ad did so well. And but you know where it did the best? Retargeting.
Mm,
Because it was a little bit of a longer format, so up front it didn't do as good. But if people were slightly familiar with the brand and I pushed it into like the retargeting audiences, so people would been to our website, people would download our app and canceled the subscription or whatever, absolutely crushed because people were like, I'm buying just because of this ad. So again, flipping that
interesting.
funnel upside down, I do think that those stories, narratives, and comedy are oftentimes like better suited in mid funnel.
Yeah. One that comes to mind, do you follow Tracksmith at all? The
No, I
running
don't.
running brand? S Massimo Alpian, he was on our show, I don't know, a year or so ago.
Yeah.
He works there and he was telling us about this one ad, this campaign that they produced. And their whole like brand is about like championing the amateur runner.
Mhm.
You don't have to be a pro, but if you love the sport, then Tracksmith is for you. That's kind of their
Mm.
customer. And they came up with this whole campaign called the Year of the Amateur. And
Nice.
amateur in Latin means love. It means for the love of
Hmm.
whatever you're doing. And I feel like that campaign, like this campaign was one of those kind of like altruistic, great, beautiful running shots. Um, it wasn't comedic in any way, but I feel like what it gave the audience was like a new perspective on who they were as a person.
Mhm.
And like, oh, I'm an amateur runner. Amateur doesn't mean bad or amateur doesn't mean beginner. It actually has this other meaning and I can relate to that. I can
Mhm.
connect to that. And I feel like that's an example where I was like, "Oh, they gave the audience
That's
something
right.
that the audience never even knew existed."
Yeah, that
They get
creativity can still win, I think. I think the creativity can still win in this day and age, even if it is like even though I'm talking about fairly robotic approaches to driving conversions for your company. I do think that the creative approaches can win. It just depends on the brand too. Like for us at Onyx, all I had to do, this is it. I had to get in front of a hunter and show them a picture of a map that didn't have any property lines and a picture of a map that did have property lines.
it's
And
such an easy problem.
we sold the shit out of it. I mean, it was the best ad ever and it just crushed. But I can't do that for Mountain Tough. Mountain Tough is more akin to having to sell that identity.
Mm,
And yes, we are solving a problem, but I also need to keep you around because subscription businesses win on their retention. They don't just win on their first purchase. You're almost losing money almost always on a subscription business's first purchase,
mm.
usually, depending on the price point. And so that creativity is definitely required still
Tell me more about the community building, and this, I mean, this kind of gets into our next point, which is community building as a brand
Sure.
driver, as a brand lever.
Yeah, so community building is very difficult to not come across as cheesy, and it is still a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of intuition, honestly. But coming down to a really good measure of success is pretty important. So I think the best example in the sort of fitness slash outdoor adjacent space is probably GoRuck right now, and they built an amazing. So I guess to just show who those guys are, they basically make functional fitness equipment, and they have a high focus on rucking, which is just weight in your backpack and walking, either uphill or on flat ground, doesn't matter. And there's tons of scientific benefits to rucking, especially for women. And they just started building ruck clubs all over the United States, and now there's ruck clubs in Japan, Europe, every country, because they knew that rucking was rucking was very could be very individualistic, but it's also really easy to do as a group. And so these ruck clubs have been a huge part of their growth and ethos and building that community and building salesmen for your product through like really authentic people and sort of that I don't even call it, maybe it's guerrilla marketing. It's just like grassroots, real community focused, connection focused marketing. And they have a whole wing that fosters that community. And so, learning from that, Mountain Tough being more of a less of a physical good product and more of a digital good. A lot of mountain toughers are working out alone in their basement gym because like a lot of mountain toughers are actually like rural, and a lot of them just like to work out in their garage gym or basement, home gym. So we have a lot of home gym style workout programs that are actually the most popular in our app. It's like 70-30%. 30% are working out in gyms, 70% are working out at home. And even in the gym, people have their headphones on. They're focused on them. They're doing their thing. So can it be, community focused? I think yes, because we started watching how people would interact with each other on the app through the comments. We launched a Facebook group, tons of interaction, tons of like-minded people creating meetup groups. Like it's not as community like ground roots focused as GoRuck because you're not, rucking is so much easier to do with somebody else and a group of people. But we're really focusing on building out, areas for people to connect with each other. So now we have a whole section of the app that's essentially a Discord server for our users. We foster a large Facebook community group. We engage with them. We're directly engaging with them with our coaches. They're answering questions. They're really fostering the community engagement through our coaches being like sort of the subject matter experts around fitness, nutrition, whatever. And that's been really successful. And we see a lot of people who are, if they're engaged in the community, they do retain better. And this is pretty common across a lot of different technologies. If people are engaged in the community, they're going to be more retained. And then the second phase to that was in-person events. Now we can't scale these as much, but they sort of draw almost like an example of the ethos, an example of who the people are, so we can highlight our customers and show people in the app, all of these vlogs about our events and show like the faces and the people and the camaraderie. And so people really feel a part of that, and that strengthens that identity.
Yeah, interesting. Would you say that like community building is like the next iteration of brand marketing?
I think so. And I think that's where a lot of brand marketing should focus, because that creativity that almost is untestable in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously you can do things, experiment and launch if it's good, but that sort of intuition that a lot of brand marketers have, I think could do really well in community activation events, making that connection with people.
I mean, it makes sense because like brand marketing, one of the ways you can define it is just like it's it's um it's that human condition.
Yeah.
It's talking to people as people with emotion and being intentional.
Mhm.
And yeah, like the community building is just the in-person version of that.
Yeah, it's hard to scale too.
Sure.
Luckily, Mountain Tough, we can scale it with sort of technology. Um, but I think, a brand that did it really, really well was Stone Glacier, and it's funny now because our the president of our org is now was the director of marketing at Stone Glacier, and he is I would say he's more on the creative minded side. He's a really good illustrator, very, very effective, creative mind. But he really, and Lyle Hebel is his name. He'd be a good guest to talk to at some point for you. But he really understood a few things. Like, what did he say? He was like, "Dude, you own your hometown, and you do community events in your hometown, and you can just vlog about it and show people like your people, and show your employees, and show the human side of the brand, and the people really like that." And if done well, it can create sort of a almost like a cult like following for that brand. He would always say, "There's two things you want to do. You don't want to run out of beer, and you don't want to run out, and you want to have cool people at your at your party." Like, and so he would throw all of these like he would throw like a summer bash at the HQ. In Bozeman, they'd have like 600 people go to it, and they throw these events, and then tons of content would be produced out of that, tons of social content. People would post about it on their social media, and then people are like, "Oh man, this is a very cool brand. Like, I would love to work there." And if you can create a brand that people, when they look at it, just have this strong desire to get a job there, I think you're starting to win that community feel, maybe.
Mm.
You know?
That's a great signal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fascinating. The whole community play is really interesting because it seems like a really I mean, it seems difficult, but it seems so lucrative,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like it's lucrative because, unfortunately, people today are so disconnected,
Yeah.
and we lack so much community that we're desperate to find it anywhere.
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation with a buddy of mine who runs, like, a mobile sauna,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Dude, I don't know what happens in the sauna, but, like, strangers
Yeah.
get to know each other, and there's
Yeah.
real community that happens when you're sitting in 140 degrees for 40 minutes."
Yep.
And and we were talking about this idea is like people just, the traditional forms of community, especially in this country, are gone, it seems like. And I mean, that's an opportunity as a brand
I I I
is
agree.
to fulfill that role.
Well, even when you're looking at social media now, it's really hard to tell what's AI and what's not. So it's like, are you even looking at people anymore? I mean, it's going to be difficult to tell here soon, and it already is. And so I really do think that the figuring out a way to do it that has impact and scale could be huge. I mean, man, I feel like there was a lot of things like pint night ideas, and going to a town and being like, guys, we're going to be in this town. We're just going to have a pint night. And maybe you buy like 3 rounds, for everybody in the bar. And it's like, at most, a couple $1,000, for that. And then your flights. And then maybe hopefully every brand has a videographer, bring a videographer, showcase that and build that desire. And then kind of see where that goes, like, I think that would be smart for a lot of brands to do.
Well, and like the opportunity to interact with your customers
You learn.
and get feedback like, "Hey,
Yes.
what can we improve on? What features do you want to see? What features do you not use?
Yeah.
What's a problem that you experience while you're out on a hunt that you would love to
Yes.
solve for?" Like that's some great customer feedback opportunities as
Totally.
well from the product marketing.
Yep, totally.
Tell me more about so you guys recently were at gosh, what was the name of the event you were just at?
We're a sheep
Uh
show, and we put
yes.
on an event called Tough Sheep.
So tell us more about this event and tell me more about how you guys then like what it was like last year and the film that you produced because
Oh,
this is such a great example of community building plus storytelling and all of the above.
yeah. So the Tough events at Mountain Tough came about. One of our employees, a super good guy named Weston, he's like, "Look, we could give away a sheep hunt." Which with if people aren't familiar with hunting, sheep hunting is very rare. It's like 1% of hunters are sheep hunters. We said, okay, what if we could give away a $50,000 sheep hunt? and make the odds of giving away that sheep hunt the best odds in the world. So at sheep show and at other conservation, banquets and events, there'll be raffles to get sheep hunts, and those are usually at least like over 1,000 plus, maybe even like hundreds of thousands of entries to get that tag, right? Or win that hunt. And then not always do you just get the tag. You then have to pay for the guide fee sometimes too. So it's not like an all-inclusive thing. So we were going to give away an all-inclusive sheep hunt to a winner of only 500 people. So we're going to go to sheep show where there's, 4 to 5,000 people, many sheep hunters, many wealthy people who can afford to sheep hunt. And we're going to give away a tag to somebody who would never ever have the opportunity to one, afford it, or even have the opportunity because of the low odds. So we broadcast this out. Hey, we're giving away a sheep hunt. All you have to do is complete the workout, finish, and then your tag that is clocked by our competitive timing partner. That tag goes into a bucket, and then at the end of the event, we draw out the winner. So it's the best odds in the world to win one of these amazing, life-changing hunts. And the odds are the best in the world. Like you'll never get so we're going to do this every year. So now this thing is selling out like right away. This is the second year we did it. It was amazing, sold out right away. And then you get to see these people, just, blood, sweat, and tears as they're going through this really difficult mountain tough workout. And they are very difficult. It's not something this year. I think we had our first 2 people quit this year, and so it's not. It's doable for everybody. We had an 84-year-old do it. It took him 2 hours to complete it, but he completed it.
Wow.
And so it's an amazing event. So what we did with that first year, highly successful. We took all of that money that we
So
got
there's
from.
an entry fee per
There is
person?
an entry fee per person, and we take all of that. We cover the cost of the hunt, and then the rest of that money we donate to the Wild Sheep Foundation. So the first year we donated $50,000 to Wild Sheep Foundation. The next year we took on brand sponsors that sponsored the waves. So if you were in the first wave, you were sponsored by Sitka. The second was sponsored by GoRuck, on and on and on. So we were able to donate more like $75,000 to the Wild Sheep Foundation this year. And so for us, it's just like Mountain Tough is just trying not to lose money. We don't. I think we maybe have made a little bit of money on it this year. We'll have to look at the month in review after we close the month, but we're just trying not to lose money. All of this is brand awareness, and at the show, we just unlocked so much like buzz around this event. So everybody at the show is talking about it. Everybody, posting about it. It just boom creates this a big awareness bubble on social and physically in the show. And then what we did was we took the winner of last year and we actually sent our videographer out with him to shoot the sheep hunt that he went on. And so we used that as the storytelling mechanism to showcase, sort of the dream that you could potentially go. And we made this film called The Gauntlet, and it was a brutal hunt up in the McKinsey Mountains. The footage is beautiful. It's insane. It's so cool. Like you watch that film, you're like, I want to do this so bad. Like I want to quit Mountain Tough and then do Tough Sheep so I can get this. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, can I just be fired and then rehired so I can try and win this hunt? Obviously the answer is no to that.
So if someone's listening, they're like, "Man, I wanna try and start doing some community building." What are some questions that you would suggest someone ask themselves to determine if they're the right fit or their company is the right fit or in the right stage to pursue some of these community building events?
I think you have to ask yourself, like, why would somebody want to hang out with us as the employee group first?
Mm.
Like, do we have a culture in our business now that people would want to be a part of? Is you fake that, the people will sniff it out real quick, or you'll have drama as you try to do more social things that will like bleed out and could cause tons of issues, right? So I think that's the first question is like, is the culture of the business something that people would want to be a part of right away? And if it's not, then that's almost a different question for the business and the leadership, that's more of that's more of a, you know, like there's some bigger problems if maybe that's not the case, potentially. But dude, there's some businesses that are just like, I just come here, I do my work and I do my job. But I think that companies would do well to improve their culture to a point where it would be, something worth a community marketing like thing, because that's really what community is. You're just bringing people along for your ride and connecting with them with yourselves.
Am I wrong in my notes? I thought you had said in our intro call that the more competitive the market, the more there is a need for brands to build community.
Oh
Did
yeah,
you say
100%.
that?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me more.
Well, there's a gap, like you were saying, like people are looking for this thing, and if you're in a competitive space and everybody's doing good performance marketing, because what is everybody telling you to do these days on the internet? Do good at performance marketing. And you can learn how to do performance marketing from YouTube basically now. And there's a lot of good growth agencies out there. A lot of the things on what to do are there and set in stone. And a lot of these brands are doing them pretty well. But not a lot of brands, not a lot of brands are doing the community thing well. So it's a blue ocean for that within a red ocean. So that simply put, it's just not many people are doing it well.
Hmm.
It's not easy. Like I said at the beginning of this call, it can become really corny and terrible and cringy, and you do not want to become known as a cringy brand, you know?
Last question. How do you prevent your brand from becoming a cringy brand?
I think that's honestly like really being thoughtful. Your brand personality should be something that you're proud of. Not surrounding yourself with yes men in your office is probably a good sign to that. Because if you have a gut feeling that something isn't like gonna land well, or it's just, it sounds really funny to you, but it may not come across as like good, or that it's tricky, man. Like coming across as cringy, I think is like, the probably the best way to go about it, and I think the highest danger is for people to appear inauthentic. And so figuring out how to ask yourself the questions like, is this authentic? Would I actually do this if I wasn't a part of this company? Would I want to be a part of this? And that it's tricky, but I think the authenticity has to come forward, because people will spot it, and I think it could ultimately like kill something if somebody's just super convicted and not open to feedback.
So if I had to try to summarize everything we talked about today, it's don't chase brand impressions for the sake of impressions.
Uh-huh.
Tie it to a specific KPI or challenge
Mhm.
that you're trying to solve. Um, Give your audience something of value, make them laugh, make them think about themselves differently, give them something if you're gonna interrupt them. Um, and then what? Community building. Maybe that's the way. The future of brand marketing.
I think so. Yeah, I think for sure. Community will probably, I don't like, just because I don't think all brands will be able to do community marketing well, and it's harder to scale. Um, there could be a lot of failure in that side of things, but I think the brands that figure it out are definitely going to be the winners.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. What do you want to leave folks with as we sign off?
Mm, I think I'll leave everybody with do hard things, because doing hard things makes your life better, and we don't do enough hard things. Life is too comfortable right now, and humans were not meant to be comfortable. We're hunter gatherers, we're conquerors, we're explorers. Go sign up for a marathon, go sign up for a high rocks race. Even if you're out of shape, sign up for an event and get in shape for it and do it. Go to your first Colorado elk hunt. Go climb a mountain. I think we need to do that as a society. We need to improve our. We've improved so much on our comfortability that we need to improve on our suffering.
And maybe if I could add one more thing to that list, like ask yourself the hard questions when you're trying to market your
Yeah.
company. Like, yeah, like it's too easy these days. What can you do differently? What do you need to? What perspective do you need to shake up? And maybe there's some stuff in here from Ryan's conversation that he should pay attention to.
Yeah.
Um, Ryan, thanks for the time.
Dude,
This
this
has
is fun, Cole.
been, yeah, thanks for everything. Thanks for the thoughts. I'm excited. I'm really intrigued with this whole like these workouts and these sheep hunts and what you guys are doing from the community angle,
Hmm.
because that's really cool. That's really cool. I feel like people should consider that and how they can learn from what you guys are doing.
Yeah, dude, I'll
Um,
see you in Reno next year.
let's go. um, Well, Ryan, thanks for the time. I hope you guys continue to crush it, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Dude, thank you.
All right. See ya.